Hi, this is Viktor Devonne, and you are listening to WEBurlesque, the podcast. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters, Michelle, Matt, Joseph, Rob, and Dolores, for your constant support of the podcast and of White Elephant Burlesque. Thank you very, very much. If you would like to help support this podcast and, in turn, some fabulous burlesque performers, please check out patreon.com/WeBurlesque. You can also check out GoFundMe.com/WeBurlesque to help fund some merchandise that White Elephant Burlesque is hopefully going to be able to unveil in the coming season. I'm very excited about what we have in the works, but unfortunately, it all costs money. So thank you very, very much for supporting White Elephant Burlesque and WeBurlesque, the podcast, and I'll talk to you soon.
Welcome to WEBurlesque, the podcast. I am your host, Viktor Devonne, and I am heading due west with my guest this evening, Sucre a la Creme.
Hello.
Am I saying that right? I've known you for about 2.5 years, and I'm always afraid I'm going to say your name wrong because it's French. And
say it again? No pressure.
Oh, fuck. Sucre a la Creme.
Yeah, that's pretty good,
Sucre.
yeah.
Sucre. You know what it is? I'm sure you get, like, sucre or sucre?
I get sucre a lot.
Sucre a la Creme. And that, of course, means what? Sugar and cream? Sugar up the cream?
So, Sucre à la Creme, my stage name, is a type of French-Canadian cream-based fudge. Now, sucre, it literally translates to sugar...
in the cream, or up the cream.
Of the cream is the closest translation I can find.
Cream of the sugar.
Yeah. It's like creamed sugar, sugar of the cream. Creamed sugar? Yeah. Anywho, but sucré means sugary. It's the adjective.
I see. All right. And you are bilingual?
I am, yes.
Did you learn French or English first? Or at the same time?
I learned them at the same time. It's always tricky when people ask me, like, what my mother tongue is, because I learned both simultaneously from infancy. My dad is French-Canadian, my mother was English-Canadian. So from birth, my mother only spoke to me in English, and my father only spoke to me in French. So.
And were you born in Montreal?
No, I was born in Ottawa.
They speak French in Ottawa?
They do, yeah. So Ottawa, for the Americans who may not know, Ottawa is in the province of Ontario, and there is a rather large Franco-Ontarian population, especially in eastern and northern Ontario, and Ottawa is in eastern Ontario.
Okay.
The more east you go in Ontario, the bigger the Francophone population. My father is originally from a village about an hour east of Ottawa, about halfway between Ottawa and Montreal, called Glen Robertson, and that's really lickety-split bilingual because everyone is like French-Canadian and Scottish.
Well, I remember when I spent some time in Montreal when I visited for the Bagel Burlesque Expo, and I stayed with you.
Yeah.
Me and Anya Keister stayed with you, and that was very nice. I was worried that I wouldn't know enough French to get by. I don't know any French, really. But I found most of the places were fairly accommodating. Just all of the signs were in French, and that worried me because I didn't know if I was parking in the right place, or I didn't know if the hours mattered, or what that meant.
That's right. So, I remember being your parking translator.
Yes, because I mean I know no and no, I know that, but but that wasn't helpful.
Did you ever take French at any point in school?
No, I took Spanish.
Okay.
Of which I've retained almost 0. But I learned just enough to pass. And we had very specific Spanish classes where we didn't learn how to converse, rather, in Spanish. Sorry. So we didn't learn to communicate in Spanish. We learned how to pass tests in Spanish. And that was frustrating. So I learned a bunch of nouns, I learned a bunch of adjectives. I just never really properly learned how to put them all together. So, and French, it's all sort of backwards, right?
I mean, in the sense that it's like, I know trying to think of the words here. Like
Put them backwards. Maybe it'll help.
yeah, it's like instead of like in English you'll do like adjective noun,
Yeah.
like scary cat.
Yeah.
Whereas in
We'll do
French
cat,
it's gonna
which
be
is scary.
yeah, we'll do
Yeah.
like noun adjective or chat épeurant. Scary cat. Yeah.
Did you say scary or scaredy?
I was just I mean scaredy cat is an expression. I was just thinking
Yeah.
an adjective and
But
a
is
noun.
there
What
French
was
for
scary?
scaredy?
Scaredy?
Because that's barely English.
I mean, I don't know. You would just call someone a peureux.
Oh.
Peureux.
What does that mean?
I guess that's the equivalent of scaredy. Someone who is scared.
Right.
Un peureux. Une peureuse.
It sounds like you're saying a pervert.
No, pervert is pervers.
Oh. Everything sounds so sultry in French. So, in your day-to-day life, I mean, you use both.
Yes.
Because you live in, we'll just say the general area of Montreal.
That's right.
But you travel a lot. Have you ever had to speak French outside of your homeland? Have you ever traveled to French-speaking places?
I only went to France once for a weekend.
Okay.
As you do.
Oh.
I had a long distance boyfriend. This is back in 2005. I had a long distance boyfriend in England, and
You speak English in England.
I know, but wait for it. He took me to Paris for the weekend.
Oh.
Hence me having been in a French speaking country other than Canada for just a weekend.
Is there like a not anecdotal the different dialect? Is there a dialect difference?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's lots of different expressions. Funny story, when I first started university, my first roommate was French, from the south of France. She was from Toulon. And there was this flash animation, because this was back in the days of flash animation.
Sure.
There was this little flash animation. It's like, all right, good news. We just finished filming the newest Batman film. Now we have to dub it. But are we going to dub it in France French or Quebec French? And it was like 6 different scenes. And there was a button you could push for France French and a button for Quebec French. And first time I watched this was at a party where it was half French Canadians and half French folks from France. And the Québécois scenes I thought were hilarious because it was just like the biggest Québécois joual. It's like scene 1 is Batman orders a criminal to put down their gun. He's like, hey, tu vas mettre ton gun, ça se fait mon calice. You know, like big full-blown like Québécois joual. And so all the French Canadians are laughing and all the people from France are like, mais je ne comprends rien, mais qu'est-ce qu'il dit? You know, they don't understand. Meanwhile, that you do the French from France scene and it's like this, like all these French expressions that just don't like now I understand them having had a French roommate, but like all the French Canadians were just like, what? There really are some very different expressions. There's this one expression I always thought was hilarious. Avoir le cul bordé de nouilles, which is a French from France expression that means to be incredibly lucky. How it translates is having your ass bordered with noodles. Having your ass surrounded by noodles. Avoir le cul bordé de nouilles.
Because you're lucky because your butt is protected and it was buoyant and it. I get it. Listen, I get it. And your partner.
Yes, Jason.
Does he speak French as well?
He does. He's actually like me, where he has one parent who's French Canadian,
Okay.
the other who's English Canadian.
Does he do stand-up comedy in French?
Not yet. He has been invited. There's a comedian in Quebec named Mike Ward, who's gained a certain amount of notoriety, including for like a lawsuit. I mean, I'm not going to get into all that, but he's notorious bilingual comedian, but who works a lot in French.
Okay.
Because that's where they keep the money in comedy in Quebec. It's mostly in the French side.
French money?
Yeah, it's the arts are way more funded in French in Quebec than in English. But then there's also, I mean, it's a big complicated thing. But all this to say, Mike Ward is the co-owner of a French comedy club in Montreal called Le Bordel. And my partner's worked with him a bunch on the English circuit, and Mike has given him a standing invitation, like, whenever you want to try in French, whenever you want, come on down to Le Bordel, and it just hasn't quite panned out yet. So I think Jason's a little reticent. I don't blame him. I mean, I already find doing comedy in English is scary as hell. Like, trying it in a language you're less...
When you're hosting, do you go back and forth?
I do, yes. When I'm hosting in Montreal, a lot of shows I'll wind up hosting bilingually.
And that seemed to be true of Bagel Burlesque.
Yeah.
The hosts, both of them. There was, oh my god.
Yeah, Oh My God was hosting the brunch the year you were there.
Yes.
And there was it Trana Wintour who was hosting?
I think it may have been, yes.
Yeah.
And they went back and forth depending on what they were saying. Usually it was like an immediate translation. They would say something and then say the same thing, presumably, in French.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was interesting because also it was there weren't, as far as I knew, any language issues or language barriers with any of the performers in at Bagel.
Yeah, I mean, most of the burlesque scene, because the global movement is majoritarily Anglophone, since it tends to be the global language of business and everything, and with the internet, it has definitely become like a global language of communication. I can't find my word in English. Here we go. Forcément, the burlesque scene in Montreal operates mostly in English. So backstage, we generally communicate in English. We'll communicate in French. And there are a few performers who don't speak much English, and then, we work with them in French, and it all works out. Yeah.
How long have you been performing?
Almost 9 years now.
9 years. Wow. And you started, you still, you work, you travel, and you're accepted by many scenes in Canada. But did you start with like a troupe or a specific show or a specific group of folk?
Well, when I first started, I started totally independently. Before performing, I wound up kittening for the inaugural edition of the Montreal Burlesque Festival, and that was a really great experience, because right from the get-go, it's like, oh, you're stage kittening for Dirty Martini and Michel Lamour and Kalani Coconuts and like all these, big names, Roxy Delight. So that was like, welcome, we're throwing into you in the deep end, but you learn really fast, and I was absolutely in love with it. I greatly enjoyed that experience. And then I started putting together an act, and there was a filmmaker in Montreal who was doing a screening of an anthology he put together, and I said, hey, do you want an opening act? So I did an act that is now retired, my Widow act, where I come out and I'm dressed in black and I'm clutching a frame with like a cartoonish drawing I've done of my much older, rich, now dead husband with a little black ribbon on it. I'm bawling my eyes out and crying. People in the audience are crying on their shoulders, and it's so dramatic. And someone comes out very somberly, shakes my hand, consoles me, pats me on the shoulder, and hands me a briefcase and walks away. And as soon as they're gone, yes, open the suitcase. It's full of money. It's full of fake bills.
Yeah.
And I get on stage, and there's a kiddie pool on stage, and I fill it full of money. I strip down and I bathe in my dead husband's money. So this was my first act that I premiered. It was December 6th, 2009. Yeah. And for the first year, I did maybe 2 or 3 gigs, really just occasional stuff where people would be like, hey, you want to do a thing? I was like, okay. And then in early 2011, I joined a troupe that is no longer happening. They were called the Blood Ballet Cabaret, and that was kind of like an anything goes, a little bit of like a punk rock edge to it. But if you wanted to do goofy neo, go for it. If you wanted to do really gory stuff, go for it. The sky was the limit, and that was I learned so much doing that. It was really great.
So what were some of your, right now you're probably known for some of your signature acts, your CSI Miami with the sunglasses, your saxophone act, Baker Street, your Wall Street act, which I saw you do.
Oh yeah, I haven't done that one in a while.
At Alternity's, the year I was there, you did that.
That's right, yeah.
What are some of the other acts that you did early on that were sort of shades of what you were going to get to?
Let's see. I still do this one occasionally, though I really want to revamp it and do it more often. My Legend of Zelda act, I would say, is probably my first full-blown Nerdlesque act. I am Link. This is Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, so the SNES one. and it involves, there's audience participation. People in the front row are given these tiny little stuffed chickens that I made out of socks. I think this time, if I do it again, I'm going to order like actual
chickens,
stuffed toy chickens.
Let's get actual chickens.
The actual and there's a little note saying like when to throw them, because if you've ever played a Zelda game, you know that the cuckoos, if you hit them with your sword long enough, a whole flock of them will swoop in and kill you. So I have one on the stage, and I start just whacking with my sword, and then the audience just pelts me with cuckoos until I die, and then a fairy runs on stage and brings me back to life. So it was all these little Easter eggs for Zelda fans I put in there, and I did it at the Blood Ballet Cabaret. We were having a children's show for adults, so revisiting all this childhood nostalgia. Sure. And I did this act, and the audience lost their minds. They were like, yes, more Nerdlesque. Yes, we're here. Yes. So that definitely, I think, was like, okay, yes, Nerdlesque is a thing I very much like doing, and I'm going to do a lot more of it. Yeah. What else? I'm trying to think what other...
What were some of the first acts you brought to the United States? Do you remember your first U.S. gig?
I do. It was the Great Boston Exposition in 2011, actually. So, and I brought the widow with me. I did, like they had on the Sunday night, they had a kind of newbie night, and I did the widow act, which was a pain in the ass to travel with. That's the thing with a lot of my earlier acts. The Zelda act I brought it to the States. I did it in Baltimore a few years ago, and the pedestal for the Master Sword at the time was this big-ass Rubbermaid bin that I spray painted, and I was like, oh, I could just put everything in the bin. Yes, but then I have to haul a giant Rubbermaid bin, and I don't have a car. No.
Did you fly, or did you bus?
I flew. My family at the time had a place in Florida, so I went there with my father, and from there I flew to Baltimore and took advantage of those amazing American flight prices that we were talking about before filming the podcast.
And you know what's so funny is that you, as only can we say as a grass is greener situation, because I guarantee you most Americans are going to say that it's way too expensive still. I'm flying now more than ever because my husband lives in California. So I'm going back and forth, and he's going back and forth. So I'm seeing plane ticket prices more than ever. I didn't do a lot of flying. And then I started performing. Everything was either in New Jersey or eventually New Jersey and New York, and then eventually New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. And I kept adding more, but never what would necessitate a plane ride. So when we were looking at, because we're on our way to the Ohio Burlesque Festival, which is my first time here. Have you been here? Have you been there before?
I have not.
So our first time, both of us. I looked at the option of flying, and I'm like, it's a drive. What?
Is it still recording?
I think so.
Yeah?
We could check.
We're just making sure we're still recording.
Give me a second.
We are still recording. Yay! Okay, good.
We'll just cut that in post. Or we won't. Yeah, this is the thing also. Since we're traveling and we're driving, Sucre is holding my phone in my face, and then her face, and then my face, and then her face.
I asked Victor if I would get a credit as sound engineer.
Yeah, I don't think we have the budget for it. We blew our money on circus performers. Sorry.
And lunch.
That's true. We did have a lovely lunch at, what was the eatery? What was it?
Powerhouse Eatery in somewhere Pennsylvania.
And it was a former powerhouse, which is, I finally understood once we walked in, that it actually was like an old building that used to have power in it. Like they used to handle, okay. So
yeah, that chimney was impressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
So right now we are outside Williamsport, which is still Pennsylvania. In fact, we're only going to be in Pennsylvania until we're in Ohio. Yeah. That's kind of how the map works. But, so I was looking at the option of driving, and then I thought that would be fine, and luckily I had someone who was going to travel with me, because otherwise I'd be doing this all by myself. And still listening to the same Madonna, don't get me wrong, which we did. We did a lot of that on the way.
Yep.
And there's more to come. But, glad to have a traveling companion. I had Broody Valentino as a traveling companion when I went up to Ithaca this past spring. So, as a non-driver,
Yes.
what is the ease in you getting show to show with especially prop-heavy acts, which you seem to have a lot of?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons I travel so much with CSI Miami. It all fits into one backpack.
Okay.
So that's been really great, especially with flying. I don't have to worry about luggage fees. It all fits into a backpack. Just, I've got my carry-on and boom. Baker Street, I've been able to squish down. You learn the art of packing when you have big acts. But I mean, like right now, I'm traveling with CSI and with Baker, and aside from the fresh toy saxophones that I just got, that are still in their boxes, fresh.
They're right off the vine.
That all fits into a carry-on size suitcase. So, yeah. Pro tip: big poofy skirt goes into a zippered pillowcase. So I have my travel pillow and my skirt.
Is that what's in the pillowcase?
That is.
That's very smart. Yes.
Also, if at the border, if they open up your suitcase and there's a big skirt, they're gonna be like, what's your deal?
Why would that be an issue?
The American border guards are very picky about Canadians and what they bring sometimes. I've heard
skirts? They're on the list?
Well, just you look weird if you're bringing costumes. They, but there's like I've also heard nightmare stories and I mean these are a bit extreme, but you're at the mercy of the border guards that you encounter, right?
Sure.
Like some of them are really cool and some of them are just jerks. Like I've heard stories of women traveling and they had a condom in their wallet. Well, they're clearly a sex worker and they get turned away or banned for 5 years. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. Seems to be slightly better than what we've got going on over here, but we've got a lot going on. What are Canadian politics like?
I mean,
and we look fondly upon them because we don't have to deal with them.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that some things are better in Canada, but it's, I mean, I
still
think
a pretty good prescription drug situation, right?
Yeah, I mean, okay, the Medicare. This is one thing. I've seen a few Michael Moore documentaries, and my overall feeling is I know he has good intentions. I like what he's going for, but he embellishes the truth just enough that it pisses me off.
Michael Moore?
Yeah.
Yes.
The documentary Sicko, I was like, absolutely, you're making all these amazing arguments, and you're unearthing all this history and why this is so problematic. Yes, yes, yes. And then he comes to Canada and he paints it as some sort of place where the hospitals are made of fucking gold or something, you know?
They just throwing pills in the streets.
The people he interviews, he's like, oh, well, I only had to wait at the ER for 45 minutes. How? That's not a thing. If I go to the ER, I'm going to be waiting there all night. The hospital wait times are ridiculous. And if I have to be admitted and get a room, I'm going to be on a stretcher in a hallway for a day or two at least until a room is freed up. You know, just because, like, yes, we have Medicare, and yes, I know it's still better than a lot of what's happening in the States, but I think it's dangerous to idealize something, over-idealize something, you know, and then the thing that happens in Canada is often you see a lot of Canadians feeling very cocky, being like, well, we're better than the States. It's like, well, with that attitude, we're not going to examine our own problems and strive to be better. You know, like, Canadians are like, oh, well, we're not racist like the United States. No, but we're still hella fucking racist. Like, it's pretty gross. Like, it's a different flavor of racism, but it's still racism. It's, you know. So Canada does have its problems. Oh my, the rain is very strong.
Give this a second.
Okay, we are back.
But they'll never know.
We'll never know.
They'll never know.
So we were talking about, oh yes, racism in Canada.
Just the difference in righteousness in Canada versus the United States is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I really think in Canada we need to really take a hard look at our biases, our racism, especially our anti-Native and our anti-Black racism. Yeah, because we still have a lot of problems. Yeah.
What is the culture day to day like in Montreal? Is it more? I mean, I guess thinking of Montreal as like one street length is stupid, but is it more highway driven? Is it more neighborhood towns walking around? I don't know. What's compared to other cities that you've been to?
Let's see.
How accessible is it, I guess?
In terms of if you don't have a car, it's quite accessible. That said, if you are in a wheelchair or in crutches, it is absolutely terrible to get around. The subway is not user-friendly for anyone in wheelchair or crutches or similar apparatuses. There's only a few metro stations that have elevators that go down. And it's, you know, people have been saying for years that the STM, the Société de Transport de Montréal, who run the subway, that they should make it more accessible. There was a bit of an annoying thing a few years ago where they renamed one of the stations, Square Victoria, was renamed Square Victoria OACE, because I don't know what the English acronym is, but OACE, it's like the, it's one of those, it's the international aviation thing that gives airports their abbreviations. It's one of the two. There's two of those, and one of them has its headquarters in Montreal, and it was their big, like, I don't know how many year anniversary. So the city spent $600,000 adding 4 letters to the name of this station. $600,000 could have been better used to, you know, maybe put in an elevator in another station or done something to make it a little more accessible. That's it. If you're, to back up a little bit, if you're a cyclist, the city is pretty accessible. We've had a one of those bike share systems for a good, I'd say going on 10 years now. It's called Bixi. It's great because Montreal is like the bike theft capital of...
Is it really?
Yeah. It's ridiculous. I've had so many bikes stolen in that city. But with Bixi, it's great because I have my annual membership. As long as you take it out for 45 minutes or less, there's no additional cost. If you keep it longer, there's gradually rising costs. But it's pretty handy dandy, because if you live in the core area of Montreal, which is what Bixi covers, you can get to most places within half an hour or 45 minutes. When I say like the core of Montreal, for those who don't know, so there's the island of Montreal, which is a boomerang-shaped island in the St. Lawrence River. In the middle of that, there is what we call the mountain, which is a couple of large hills, smack dab in the middle. And the core of the city of Montreal is built around that mountain. Okay. So downtown is to the south of it, southeast-ish of it. The east, exactly to the east of the mountain, is the area called the Plateau, which is a very popular neighborhood. You also have, also to the east, although a little bit more towards the north, you have Mile End, which is, some people call it the Williamsburg of Montreal.
Cannons everywhere.
Cannons?
I'm thinking Williamsburg, like Civil War, so
it's... I'm thinking like historically Jewish neighborhood that is now full of hipsters. Yeah.
I was thinking like Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Cannons?
I was like, I did not hear about these cannons in Williamsburg. In New York, you're so full of surprises.
True. So when did you... So you lived in Montreal...
For about 14 years now.
14 years. And so you started burlesque 9 years ago, roughly. So had you been a fan? Had you been going to shows? And then, how did it all come together?
I originally moved to Montreal for music school in 2004.
What do you play? Or sing?
I was a classically trained singer and a composer. So I wanted to be a composer. I wanted to go to school in composition. I was accepted at UDM, at Université Montréal, in music writing techniques, which is less the creative composition side and way more the technical stuff. So more mandatory harmony and counterpoint classes. And you had to pass more mandatory classes before you got access to your one and only composition class. It was not a good fit for me. I fucking hate counterpoint. I flunked Counterpoint 2 twice. It was not a good fit for me, and I wanted to change, or I wanted to at least go part-time, and then there was pressure from my family to, no, don't go part-time, but I was also working 30 to 40 hours a week in addition to going to school full-time to make ends meet. Right. And I just wound up getting really discouraged and burning out, and I flunked out of music school in 2008. So what happened in 2008? And I'd also, right around that time, I ended a serious relationship, the first person I'd ever lived with. We parted ways. So all of this happened at the same time. I was like, well, I'm 23, kicked out of school, single. What now? And one of the things I decided was,
you're like, that's the beginning of like a WB series. Like that's the pilot. That's the opening. And then Felicity shows up or something. Like, that's it.
Well, I guess you could say it was the pilot of Sucre à la Creme, because I was like, well, now what? And I decided, well, I'm going to be nice to myself. I've had a rough go of it. I'm going to take myself out I keep hearing about this burlesque stuff. There's these shows happening at the Mainline Theater. I'm going to go check it out. And there was this troupe called Team Burlesque. And there were 3 core members. It was Miss Sugarpuss, Seska Lee, and El Diablo. And they had a month...
T-E-A-M?
T-E-A-M. Team Burlesque. And they had a monthly show at the Mainline Theater on Saint Laurent, and they had a bunch of guests every time, but they were the core group. So I went to, it was September 2008, they had their back to school spectacular. So the host was the principal, and the stage kitten was like one of the students, and then someone did an act as a gym teacher. And actually this was Scarlett James, before she did the festival. The first time I ever saw her, she was doing what was arguably a very neo number where she was a science teacher. I loved it. I was like, this is amazing. This is, I don't know, I can't find my words, but I'm sure that's how we all felt when we first saw burlesque. All of us who do it now, you know, we remember that magical feeling of like, I was missing, I didn't know this was missing from my life. And the biggest memory I have was Miss Sugarpuss coming out on stage in a blue janitor onesie, sweeping the floor, and then she looks up at the audience and she goes, hello, I didn't see you there. I'm Hugo, le concierge. But I tell you a secret. I never wanted to be a concierge. I wanted to be a danseur. And Hugo keeps sweeping, and he's got this little radio that's playing this little music in the background, and suddenly static on the radio, and then this voice saying, "Dance, Hugo, dance!" And this big music comes on, and Hugo just starts grinding against his push broom, and I still remember the feeling of my head thrown back and tears pouring down my cheeks as I'm watching this gorgeous woman with all of her amazing curves and wobbly bits just fucking rocking that stage, being a total dork. And it was just, that's the moment where I was like, fuck, I want to do that too. That was the defining moment. Watching Miss Sugarpuss as Hugo was just, oh my god.
Transcendent.
Oh my god, it was amazing. Yeah, that was one of the big things that stuck with me, was like, I had been fed these images of like thin is good, thin is this and that, and to watch this troupe, you know, that like they weren't, you know, like two of the members were arguably rather slender, and then one of them had like a tummy, but I was just like, oh my goodness, they have stretch marks and they have, you know, a little bit of overhang here and there, and it's okay and it's awesome, and yes, and me with my tummy and my hips and my thighs, this is good and this is okay. It was like a huge awakening, you know. Like, it was a...
Representation is important.
It is important, yeah. But, yeah. Just the feeling of...
That was night one?
That was night one. I guess if I pause there, it's just I'm sort of thinking about how I felt then, and it's like now I am much bigger than I was at the time, and what I've learned since as a fat woman about, like, representation and body standards, it kind of like all smooshed in my brain and I lost my words for a second there. But yeah, as a still relatively thin but with wobbly bits that were not accepted by society, 23-year-old young woman, this was absolutely mind-blowing to me. Yeah.
Do you still have that same feeling for it now, or do you get a little, now that you know all the components and the gears behind the screen, do you still allow yourself to get marveled by burlesque?
It still happens sometimes. I mean, there's definitely an element of, if anyone here is familiar with like the craft of stand-up and being in a room full of stand-up comedians watching another comedian, and they don't laugh, but they go, "That's funny. That's funny. That's funny." I mean, I think we all get like that to a certain degree in burlesque. I remember one show about a year or two ago that I was actually hosting it, but watching from the side, and this was Blue Light Burlesque in Montreal, who they had been going, I don't think they're going anymore, that or they're on hiatus right now, but they started like way back in 2004, I think, and they had a monthly review, but watching them go, there was just something. And there was still something magical. I think just the fact that show's been going so long, there's like a little something in the air. And just watching off the side of the stage, it might also be because the lighting, they actually have a lighting system in that venue. It can make a difference, yeah. Whereas a lot of Montreal venues, the lighting is like, well, you got what you got and you work with it.
That's New York. That's a lot of places.
Yeah.
Because they focus the lights once a week, if that, and they leave it as such, and that's what you get.
Yeah. But watching on the side, I felt that same giddiness and wonder that I felt at the beginning, you know. So that was a really nice experience to be like, wow, I felt like I was watching burlesque again for the first time. It was a really nice feeling.
Who excites you in the burlesque scene? We talked a little bit about this off the record while we were eating, about some of the names that we like get into, but who would you like to shout out as some of the folk that you marvel at?
Well, I was telling you over lunch about Loulou la Duchesse Derrière from Montreal. She is absolutely incredible. She featured at the Bagel Burlesque Expo this year, and she's going to be headlining the Ottawa International Burlesque Festival in October. She has this relatively new act. She is from the Mohawk Nation of Ganawage. She comes out on stage. She's wearing this violet Catherine Delish gown with like the marabou trim. With her back to the audience, she's wearing one of those 1940s style turbans, also purple. But the music starts up, and it's a Tribe Called Red, and she goes into these traditional dance moves, and she twirls around and hoists up her gown. You can see she's not wearing high heels, but she's wearing these beautiful black, white, and orange beaded moccasin boots. And then the music changes tracks, and it goes into another Tribe Called Red track called Sila, featuring Tanya Tagak, who is a throat singer. And as soon as it changes tracks, she whips off the turban, and just 2 long black braids fall out. And she just tears up that floor. Like when she did it at Bagels, she was dancing on a broken toe. And she does this floor work where she's like in like a weird V shape, but she's on point on her broken toe, and you could not tell she had a broken toe. She just rocked that stage. She's absolutely incredible. She's also an awesome costumer. She actually made the big skirt for my Baker Street act.
Okay.
Yeah. She's phenomenal, and she's really, really nice to boot. So
I love when that
great.
happens.
Yeah.
When talented people are also kind. I like that.
Yeah.
It's not unusual, but it's nice.
Who else? Oh my god, there's so many people. I'm trying to like boil it all down.
Oh, sure.
I mean, shout out to Trey DeMarc. Trey DeMarc is an absolutely lovely...
I've met Trey, yes.
Yeah, lovely burlesquer from Minneapolis. He's going to be headlining the Ohio Burlesque Festival, which we're driving to right now. He competed for King of Burlesque at the Burlesque Hall of Fame this year. He's so lovely and so good. And apparently at Beehoff at the after party, he was like getting into twerking competitions while dressed as Spider-Man, I think. I saw photos. I'm just like, I don't know what's going on, but I like it. He's such a sweetheart. Redbone fucking knocks my socks off. She is just so goddamn incredible. And it's amazing to see her have the success she's been having. Like this year she headlined in Brazil and New Zealand, you know, and a whole bunch of places in the States, and it's just like she's so nice and she's so good, and it's just like, yes, I'm so damn happy for her. She's one of these people I've had, she's the whole package, you know. She does classic really well, and her neo, like she's got that act with like the yellow pants. It's like her breakdancing act to I got your boyfriend, I got your man. Have you seen this act?
I don't recall.
And she gets into like a fight with someone in the audience over their boyfriend, and then she takes off the earrings like she's gonna go beat them up.
Right.
And at the end she jumps into the audience, she grabs the boyfriend by the hand, and she pulls him out of the theater. And it's just, she headlined the Ottawa Burlesque Festival last year with this, and people were just rolling in their seats crying with laughter. She's so funny, and she's just so damn good. I mean, I could go on here. There's Bibi Lolo Bang Bang in Montreal is so funny. We were talking a little bit about her earlier. She's comes from a clowning background, and she just oh my god, yeah, no, she's absolutely great. Penny Romanoff, also from Montreal.
Sweetheart.
Yeah,
Sweetheart.
Absolute sweetheart.
Very talented.
Yeah, one of my best friends. So, spoiler, I might be slightly biased, but also just...
Bias is just a bad word for informed. You just know what you're talking about.
I like that. But I was telling you earlier, there are 2 burlesque acts that make me cry every single time I see them. Baron Von Stick's Romeo and Juliet act. He is also from Montreal. And
he runs Bagel Burlesque with...
Lulu Les Belles Mirettes. Yes, he and Lulu co-produced Bagel. And the other act that makes me cry every single time is Penny has this beautiful contemporary dance act set to Lasha de Sela's El Desierto, which is this just beautiful song.
for gas.
Okay, we are stopping for gas, people of the internet. And it's just, she wears this like burnt orange satin gown, and it's the only thing she takes off, and it's just this beautiful, joyful dance, and the ending is so powerful that every time I'm just like,
It's like hyper romantic. Like it's passionate. Yeah.
It is so passionate, and that ending, and just like the collapsing and the blackout, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to see this act. You need to book this act. She is.
If Rockmore had the stage, she would be doing it because she's in my show next week. But unfortunately, bars, you got to pick. You got to decide sometimes what you can bring, because some of these great talents use every inch of a stage that they got.
Yep. And she doesn't do it all that much in Montreal because Montreal doesn't have a lot of big burlesque stages. She's been doing it at a few festivals, but I'm telling you right now, like
at Alternatives.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, producers listening to this, seriously consider hiring her as a feature, because she's absolutely fucking incredible, and she is so damn nice. Got gas.
Thank you for narrating. I appreciate it.
I'm helping.
I know. Well, we're still 3 hours out of Ohio. Well, out of Cleveland. I don't remember how deep into Cleveland we go.
We're in East Cleveland, or where we're
Is there
staying.
some sort of east-west issue in Cleveland that we need to be aware of? That, like, some rivalry, perhaps?
I don't know, but if people have like a finger-snapping dance fight, I'm going to be really impressed.
That actually might be at the festival tonight, actually. That's going to be an act. So you were in...
I look forward... I'm really excited to see what's going to be happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't actually know most of the performers. So...
I mean, I know... I don't remember who specifically is on which night, but Trey DeMarc is headlining. Monet Hasidi is going to be in from Sacramento. She is really lovely. I'm really excited to see her again. Who else is going to be there? God, there's all kinds of people from all over the place. I'm really excited.
So you were in New York. When did you get in?
I got in on the 28th, which was the Saturday.
What day are we at? It's August 2nd.
We are Thursday.
You've been here a while. Right.
Yeah.
So you performed in Coney Island again. Had you performed in Coney Island before the WEBurlesque Festival? Or was that your first time?
The WEBurlesque Festival was my first time.
And that was about a month ago. Maybe two?
No, that was at the end of April.
Listen, I have no sense of time anymore. I have no sense of time. So what was the WEBurlesque Festival like? What'd you do?
That was so much fun. I did CSI Miami. It was 2 nights on the stage at Coney Island, USA, which I love that stage. You can feel the historic value just like
you feel
beaming on you.
Yeah.
It's magic. It really is. It's a magical stage. So I did CSI Miami there, which I did again at the wedding on Sunday.
For our friends Anya and Z.
Yeah, Anya Keister. Yeah, it was really, really great. I met all kinds of awesome people. Okay, there's this one act that And this performer also did this act at the Bagel Burlesque Festival this year.
Okay.
Bunny Wigglebottom from Atlanta did a Chris Farley tribute act that started as, what's the character's name? Matt, oh, come on, I know this. I burnt my brain out on all the trivia you gave me earlier. For those of you at home, Victor has been peppering me with Simpsons trivia for the whole ride.
Only because
I started it. I did.
You gave me 5 rounds, and I think... how many questions per?
10.
And I think I only missed 5, right?
You missed 5.3.
Right, because I didn't remember...
You didn't remember...
The third of a... I didn't remember...
The jean designers who are the true victims of counterfeit jeans. You said...
Antoine
Bugleboy.
And Gloria Vanderbilt.
And you missed Calvin Klein.
I know, now I know. The most obvious one I missed. Because, I was thinking it had to be funnier than that. But it's funny because he started obvious, went for less obvious, and then went for ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's comedy.
That whole bit in that episode might be one of my favorite... That might make it one of my favorite Simpsons episodes because there's just so many gags like boom, 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 boom.
That's one of my father's favorite jokes.
Yeah?
My father's favorite joke in The Simpsons is car hole.
Car hole.
Ooh-la-dee-da, Mr. Frenchman. What do you call it? A car hole. Because he says garage is too fancy. Yeah. No, for some reason, I used to watch first run classic Simpsons with my father.
Aww.
And particularly when it was on Thursdays for a while. And then when it moved to Sundays, we kept it going. But I don't think we watched it together when it first was on. I know I watched it, but for some reason that stuck with me. I always remember my friends, their favorite Simpsons bits, because I was usually present for what they laughed at the most, and then it informed our friendship thereafter.
Aww. So for me in that episode, that whole segment of like the counterfeit jeans operation is happening in the garage. And then Herman is laughing his head off with his colleagues. Homer walks in, hey Herman, I just had to see it was so funny. A counterfeit jeans operation running out of my car hole. Herman, how could you? Stay here, I'm gonna go call the cops. He pulls out a gun, not so fast. Homer's like, okay, and walks slowly. Maybe you should just stop. Herman, how could you? And then he goes in
We've all dreamed of the counterfeit jeans ring. But what are the victims?
Calvin Klein, Gloria Vanderbilt, and Anton Bugleboy. Just that whole thing is just boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
and it's, oh my god, it's so good.
It's very good.
Yeah. What were we talking about before we got off track?
It's too early to be this punch happy. We were talking about the Nerdlesque Festival at Coney Island.
Oh yeah, Bunny Wigglebottom. Oh, Matt. Oh, what is that character's name? The guy who lives in a van down by a river.
Oh, I don't remember.
My name is Matt Foley. My name is Matt Foley. I am a motivational speaker, and I live in a van down by the river. And then she goes into this dance as Matt Foley, and just her body language is so damn good. She is so funny, but she moves so well. She goes down to these splits and just... But then Matt starts stripping and he turns into Chris Farley, the Chippendales dancer. So he transitions from one Chris Farley character to another, and it was so bloody good. Funny story, at Bagel, when this act started and just the voiceover came on, my name is Matt Foley, one guy in the middle audience just stood up and just did the little devil horns with his hand right from the jump, and we all laughed. It was just the guy just stands up from his little cabaret table, just But yeah, Bunny Wigglebottom killed it at Bagel and killed it at Nerdlesque. So damn good.
Yeah, I like the Nerdlesque Festival because it is a variety of fandoms that are represented. Had you done it before?
No, it was my first time.
First time at Nerdlesque. Yeah, and you've had a couple Nerdlesque acts. Mm-hmm. Would you consider yourself a Nerdlesque performer, or would you just a neo-burlesque who dips into nerdy shit?
I mean, I think there was a time where I definitely considered myself first and foremost a nerdlesquer, because most of my stuff had pop culture references. I've been a part of Burlesque Geek Montreal since its creation 5 years ago.
Is that a Nerdlesque performance group?
It is, yeah. Which is curated and headed by Lulu Les Belles Mirettes, who's the co-founder of the Bagel Burlesque Expo. Yeah. And so for that, I've done all kinds of stuff. They've also had some looks that were just hosting looks, and I didn't have an act. Like, I have a Zap Brannigan costume that I made, like, back in 2008, 2009 for Halloween.
Just to wear.
And
I mean, listen, your personal life is your personal life.
My little brother dressed up as a bugalo. I made the sound and everything. And we didn't win the costume contest that year, though, unfortunately. But,
Did you have the hair?
as best as I could. Just as I had long hair and I did a bit of a pompadour and then I had a ponytail. So I was a...
like a greaser, Zap Brannigan.
Oh, his hair is... It's hard to interpret, but it could be a bit of a pompadour.
He's a cartoon. It's sort of hard to redo the cartoon hair.
Yeah. But, so I've hosted as Zap Brannigan, which was so much fun. He's such a great character to host as. And there is a member of Burlesque Geek. Sorry, I'm eating a Mounds bar at the same time, everyone at home, so I apologize for the crunching and the munching. I have coconut in my teeth. I'm sorry, you really needed to know that. There is one of the members of Burlesque Geek is Igor, who is just this lovely guy. He does not do burlesque, but he's kind of the homme à tout faire, the guy who kind of does everything and anything that's needed at Burlesque Geek. And we'll just pull him up on stage because he's bloody hilarious. There was more recently we did a TV themed show where I hosted again as Zap Brannigan, and he was the Greendale human being. And oh my god. The first time I hosted Zap Brannigan, we painted him green and he was Kif, because I made a Kif costume as well. As you do.
Of course.
And he was the best goddamn Kif. Like, I entered the stage, like, he carried me on stage in a piggyback ride and just collapsed on the stage. And, oh yeah, no, he was just, like, the best. Yeah, he's amazing. I'm getting off track. But yeah, I did create a lot of nerdlesque stuff for that. But I guess overall I see myself as more of a neo-burlesquer who has a fair amount of nerdlesque, but not first and foremost a nerdlesquer. Because I think Baker Street really changed the game for me, because that's like, it's not nerdlesque, it just...
It feels like it could be, though.
I guess...
Like it feels like a reference. Because especially that song, it's almost like a nerdlesque of that song. If we can get so meta, where now we're doing nerdlesque of songs.
It's like, oh, what fandom is that? Jerry Rafferty.
Oh. I mean, you obviously aim more towards comedy.
Yeah.
Is there a particular reason for that? Does it just feel more natural to you? Do you feel that there's enough going on in the world where you just want to have it lighter? Because you do sophisticated comedy, you do funny. You also do witty. And witty is different than just comedy acts, than just a funny comedy act. Because the references are thoughtful and well chosen.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. But they're also ridiculous. And on the surface, completely bananas. So is there a reason that you have fallen into the bananas category? Or is there a dramatic side of you I just don't know about yet? I know you're still eating.
I love that you're stretching out this question as much as I can, because you see my mouth is still full. That's very sweet of you.
Especially since I can just cut it and pay in post.
Oh, that's true. The power of post. I mean, it's just more natural to me. I'm just a big ass goofball. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a total dork.
Were you like that growing up?
I became like that growing up, because I think a lot of us who are funny had to develop it as a defense mechanism, especially against bullying and stuff when you're a kid, because grade school was not good to me at all. And towards the end of it, I remember being like, you know what? I want to be funny. I started watching a bit of comedy on TV, and I was like, comedians look really cool, and like they're in control. They've got it. And I was like, I want to be funny. And I wasn't seeing a lot of women comedians, but I was like, fuck it.
Who are your references?
I'm trying to remember. this isn't anything in particular, but I remember watching like a little bit of stand-up comedy on TV and thinking like, I could do that. I still don't do stand-up comedy. My partner does it. He does it super well. I mean, I can improv into a mic and make people laugh, but I can't write bits.
Jokes, yeah.
Yeah. But all this to say, you know, as a...
It's like Jujubee says, I'm a funny bitch, but I don't write no jokes. Fair.
I don't know them.
Oh, Jujubee, the Drag Race. They're,
okay.
They're Drag Race.
I don't watch Drag Race, unfortunately.
But there's like a comedy challenge. She's like, oh, you're naturally funny. I'm like, yes, that's kind of the problem. Is that when you're naturally funny, it's really hard to, you know, maneuver that into a structure. Because sometimes you're just naturally funny.
Yeah. But, you know, flashback to like this 11, 12-year-old girl who had like maybe one friend at the best of times in grade school, otherwise no friends. I received written death threats. It was really, really bad.
Jeez.
Yeah. And I remember thinking like, fuck it, I want to be funny. And I thought, oh, it's scary. What if no one laughs? And I was like, I have nothing to lose. I am at the bottom of the barrel. What are they going to do? Pick on me? They're already doing that. And so it kind of acted as a natural defense mechanism. Like when the bullies started acting up, I'd say something weird and hope it was funny. And of course, at first, you're not funny. You're learning how to be funny. You're developing your sense of humor. It's an age where you're developing what your personality is going to be. And I remember just getting really confused looks from the bullies. So it kind of worked, I guess. Threw them off balance. But I developed into a weird, eventually funny kid. And
As you amped the awkward.
Yeah.
Tweaked it just a little.
Well, I've still got the awkward. I've got
Hi, you're listening to WEBurlesque, the podcast. I am Viktor Devonne, and this podcast is a discussion, a series of conversations that I get to have with some fabulous entertainers and people who work in nightlife. I would like to take a moment to thank Michelle, Rob, and Stormageddon for their Patreon support. If you would like to help support this podcast, you can go to patreon.com/WEBurlesque, that's WEBurlesque, and pledge at least $5, and I'll say hello to you on the podcast each week. Also, there are other options as well. I'd like to remind you that we are a burlesque show, and we happen all over the place. In addition to anywhere where I'm appearing, which is in New York City and New Jersey and Boston and Philadelphia and wherever else people will have me, you can also see White Elephant Burlesque weekly at Rock Bar in New York City on Christopher Street. It is a 7 o'clock show. It is a $10 pay what you can. We are also every second Tuesday at Bazaar Bushwick in Brooklyn, which is another $10 pay what you can situation. And you can also see us now every month, which is our second Saturday of the month, which is our Middletown Cabaret show, which happens in Middletown, New York. It is a $10 admission. It is a whole lot of fun, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be working as much as I am with such fabulous, fabulous people. So please do come check us out and enjoy the show. Bye.
So we were driving. Some time has passed. 3 days have passed.
Yes.
We are now driving from Ohio back to the tri-state area, where I live at least. And then Sucre Creme will be heading to Boston for a gig on Tuesday?
On Monday night.
Monday night
I'm doing Smoke and Shadows at the Rockwell.
Right. Shout out to Elsa Riot, who runs a great show in Boston. I forget what the town. Somerville, yes.
Somerville, yes.
So we were talking, and then we said, "Oh, we have a recording device in the car. Let's get some on the record." We were talking about burlesque acts sort of in a therapeutic and also a autobiographical sense.
Yes.
And I have a lot of acts that are both autobiographical and take liberties with them. They're not literal interpretations. I have an act that stems from a great deal of depression in my life, and I don't talk about it a lot, but as someone who woke up one day when they did not expect to, I have an act that somewhat addresses it, but not necessarily in the methodology that one may have assumed. So I have wraps around my wrists. That is mostly there for a visual cue to the audience of self-harm. It's not a literal interpretation of what I've been going through, per se, but it's meant to sort of help that along. You know what I mean? But there are some acts that I have, like Digital Get Down is pure escapism. While it does draw from elements of my life because I am a child of the 90s, I had internet access in 96. I dealt with dial-up modems. I did do chat rooms. I never did webcams because I was underage, and I was very particular about how underage I was. I wasn't into people being into me at that age. I wanted them to think I was older. So.
And sometimes a woman, you said.
And well, listen. Don't tell all my stories.
Sorry.
There's not a. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm generalizing, but there are probably very few queer men who didn't at least once pretend to be a girl on the internet, because they didn't necessarily know how to reconcile their queerdom. But then you sort of realize that for example, I didn't know how to cosplay as a woman. I really don't know how to do it. Like, I don't know how to be. I would be like, yeah. He's like, oh, are you feeling this way? I'm like, probably, if that's how it anatomically works. I'm not really sure. But that's getting off base. So I was saying to Sucre that of your several acts, two of which you did this weekend.
That's right.
That are your signature acts, one may assume that they are not particularly
autobiographical
or personal, even. And I was curious if you'd like to address that for the record.
I mean, I guess I can't remember if we touched on this a few days ago, but I may have told the story of... No, I don't know if I told the story of CSI. So I used to be in a troupe called the Blood Ballet Cabaret back...
I don't recall the story.
Okay. Back in 2011, 2012, I was a part of this troupe. And that was great because every month I had to churn out a new act. So as a relatively new burlesquer, it was a great exercise and got me creating a lot. And some of those acts I still do to this day, including CSI Miami. Our troop leader announced that we were going to have a Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego themed show. So basically an international show. And I was like, well, this could get really racist really fast. How do we avoid this? And I was like, okay, well, I could be the United States. And this is the time when the CSI Miami meme was really popular on the internet.
Very indicative of all the United States is murder crime scene. Great.
Ouch.
Harsh.
Also, I apologize for people listening. In the past 3 days, I have lost my voice.
Yes. Due to bad air conditioning and yelling, too.
I did a lot of cheering. Even last night when I was like, I sounded like this, if not worse, last night. And I was like, I have to spare my voice.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to be the United States, and this meme was floating around, so I was like, I'll be CSI Miami, and I'll be that detective guy, and I'll have sunglasses on my boobs, okay. And then
sing and dance to
We Don't Get Fooled Again by The Who, yeah. But then I talked to my troop leader about it. She was like, sorry, but Julian is going to do the United States. Julian was our resident hula hooper. Julian's going to do the United States. He's going to hula hoop a giant donut. And I was like, look, back off, Julian. You're going to be Canada, okay? You're going to be Tim Hortons. I'm America. So I bullied him out of the States. And
Tim Hortons is equivalent of what? Like Krispy Kreme? Penny's situation?
Krispy Kreme. I mean, I haven't been to Krispy Kreme. I think I've had them once or twice. I think they have a few of them in Canada.
But it's like a fast food donut shop, right?
It's a donut shop that serves like coffee and soups, and their menu has been ever expanding. Like now they serve poutine, which feels so very, very wrong.
They serve what?
So Victor likes to tease me because of my accurate pronunciation
Correct.
of poutine, or
I
what?
enjoy it. No, because it's kind of ironic teasing, because I'm very much aware that we mispronounce things. I'm aware of that.
Yes. For those of you at home that are like, what is she talking about? I'm talking about what Anglophones normally call poutine. So the French fries.
Cheese curds.
With the cheese curds and the gravy.
Yes.
And
which we Americanize as disco fries without cheese curds. I'm aware of that, because we don't do curds.
Yeah,
we
just do shredded
cheese. Well, preferably. There are some places that do like slices. No, I'm not saying it's a great idea.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It depends. It's like I say, but would I eat it? I'd probably eat it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, again, the slices only really work, though, if it's melted, like, hardcore.
Okay.
But those fries gotta be fresh.
Yeah.
Sorry, we are
getting off topic. So anyway, I badgered poor Julian into changing from the States to Canada. It worked. He did a great Tim Hortons act. And I was America as CSI Miami. So that's where that came from. It's not particularly autobiographical, but I think it's very reflective of my sense of humor. I mean, Baker Street is not autobiographical, and I may have brought this up the other day, but it might have been like when your phone stopped recording.
Yeah.
We talked for an hour after it stopped recording.
Listen. We were also just having a conversation.
Yeah, it was a good conversation. I do not regret it at all. The phone rang. We were just like, oh, hang on, let's wait till the phone stops ringing. We'll keep talking. We didn't think that we didn't cut off.
It's been so long since I've used the voice memos feature, I forgot how sensitive it was.
So, Baker Street is not necessarily autobiographical, but, so I was going to tell the story of how it came to be. So, in spring of 2015, my partner and I were living like half time in Montreal, half time in Ottawa. We were going back and forth constantly. So on a Monday morning, really early, we're driving into Ottawa because I had to be there for work really early. And it's about 8 a.m. We're just getting into Ottawa. We're driving along the 417, and I'm listening. He's driving. I don't drive, and I'm listening to Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty, and I just suddenly yes, for those who are not familiar, it's the one that goes bow bow.
Sorry, I'm losing my tune structure.
That's okay.
Sorry.
I like your artistic rendition. Listen.
Although yesterday I kept doing mashups of Baker Street and Careless Whisper. I couldn't help it. The two most iconic saxophone solos. I couldn't help it.
It happens a lot. People come up to me and be like, I love that act of yours. I'm like, that's not the song.
Anya
but
Keister
I love you anyway.
Anya Keister is a great Careless Whisper.
Oh, I've heard she does. I haven't seen it yet.
It's her closest to a classic act.
Yes, that's right. She told me about that. Okay, so I'm listening to Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty, and I suddenly just explode laughing. I mean, like, giant belly laugh till my abs hurt. I mean, the tears rolling down my face. And my partner's driving, and he's looking over at me very concerned because I went from zero to dying of laughter in no time flat. And he's like, what is happening? And what happened is that the act came to me in one solid flash. It just hit me like a ton of bricks, the whole act in one go.
A bunch of saxophones.
Yeah, the whole thing. And I'm trying to explain to him between laughter. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to be like really glamorous and super, and then there's going to be a saxophone, and there's going to be another, and he's just like looking really concerned. He's like, oh, okay.
And are we happy about the saxophone?
Yeah. He was like, should I pull over? So that's how it came to me. Is it autobiographical? I mean, sometimes I joke, like, when people say, like, where did that act come from? And I say, half jokingly, a sax player broke my heart. But I thought about it, and, I mean, a sax player did break my heart about, I don't know, 6 or so years ago.
But you didn't think about that.
I didn't think about it in the moment, but the thing is, when I was, pining over this person who was totally wrong for me and it never would have worked, you know, because
musicians.
I know, musicians. And oh my God, he was hot. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. All this to say, when I was pining over him, I was like trying to channel that sadness, and I started like writing this piece for a big band that I was going to do like a classic sad purple strip to, and I shelved that, you know. But is it a coincidence that Baker Street is purple and has a saxophone in it? And here's the thing, is this guy I dated was also like, we had a similar sense of humor for some things, but for other things he seemed kind of embarrassed about how goofy I was. So I know he would fucking hate this act, and that really delights me.
You were too ridiculous?
I was very ridiculous, yes. Like,
even more so than you are now?
No, I mean, like, this level of ridiculousess that I am now, it was too much for him. He couldn't handle all this. He didn't
take all
He didn't deserve this.
True.
I mean, he wasn't a bad guy or anything. It just wasn't a fit, you know?
People who usually can't handle other people usually see their way out. They usually find their way out.
Yeah, like, it's one of those things where in the moment I was like, oh my God, he's so great. And now in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, but that was never gonna work. Anywho. So I guess that's the autobiographical element in Baker Street.
I mean, you said you had also had a personal act that was the pink act, your cancer awareness act. It was personal.
Yes.
Because you lost your mother to cancer.
I did, yes. And I don't know if this
I cut out before, so this is new. This is new.
Okay. So
that's one reason I brought it up.
Okay. I had this act and I actually toured Japan with it. An act about pink washing. If anyone has seen the amazing documentary Pink Ribbons Incorporated by Leah Poole, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And so I had this act where I was just this glamorous woman in pink, like the full, like, pin-up curls, pink robe, everything, right? Glittery pink lips. And I started dancing around and taking off my clothes, and the front row was handed out packets of fake money and instructions. So they start waving their money around, trying to, like, outbid each other for my clothes. So I'm, like, dangling a glove, and the person who's flashes the most money at me, I grab the money out of their hand and I give them the glove, and I've got two boxes on stage. I had a green box with a dollar sign, and then I had a pink box with the pink ribbon on it, and I take that money and I put just a tiny little bit in the pink box, and I put the rest in the green profit box. Right. And I did that with all my clothing items. And the soundtrack was sound bites from the documentary talking about how, like, the different problematic aspects of all this. And I remember the music was like, I agonized like over what the music should be, and sometimes it's right under your nose. I was listening to a lot of Kimbra at the time, and there was a song I really liked called Good Intent, and then I was like, this was again during like this massive period of depression when I was like sad about Saxophone Dude. So I was doing...
And you had just lost your mom, right? Or was your mom still...
And it was still pretty fresh.
Yeah.
She passed away in December 2010, and this was like the winter of 2013, so it had been just over 2 years.
And I mean, that's a lot, also like doing stuff like that on stage, it keeps it fresh. It doesn't, I mean, it's healing, but it also keeps it top of mind.
It was part of the processing, I think. But I was, one night I'm just like staying up all night in a cafe, because that's apparently what I do when I'm depressed. I just go to a cafe and I stay up all night. And I was trying to work on this act, and I was like, what song? And I'm listening to Good Intent by Kimbra, and I'm like, oh my fucking God. Here it is. It's perfect, you know? You know you didn't mean it, no you meant so well. The pennies are cascading down, you're wishing well. You know? And it's just, you know, you've got your reputation and your good intent. It just fits so perfectly. So it was right under my nose. So I did this act, and at the end, I have like my pasties and my G-string have little pink ribbons. But what I did is at the end, I took like 3 of the fake dollar bills, and I glued one to one pasty, one to the other pasty, one to my crotch, and then I blew a kiss to the audience. But I don't do that act anymore. I had a friend in Montreal. She and her partner at the time were coming to a show to see this act, and she was very excited to see this act. But after the fact, I was talking to her partner. I was a bit closer to her partner than her, and she was in the middle of cancer treatments as well. So, I was talking to her partner after, and he was like, she was really looking forward to this, and it's a good act, but she feels that it's maybe not your story to say because you're not going through cancer. And I was like, that's a good point. So I've shelved the act because, like, if I'm hurting people who are dealing with it firsthand, like, even if I have my own story around cancer,
even if you have your own good intent,
even if I have my own good intent does not negate impact. So I shelved the act. Yeah. I have another act. I don't do very much. That's autobiographical of the period it was created in, which was again in that big depression period of like 2012, 2013. Is my The Chain act. I have an act to the song The Chain by Fleetwood Mac.
I love that song.
And I come out draped in this black cloak, and I turn around and I pull out my hands, and you see that my wrists are cuffed together. And so I struggle to break out of the cuffs, and I finally do. And then
you said you would never break the chain.
I said I would never break the chain, but I'm getting there. I did. Spoiler alert, I broke the chain. I'm getting there. And then I take off the cape, and I twirl around, and the inside is lined with like navy blue satin and dotted with a whole bunch of rhinestones like a constellation. And I slowly pull that down my body. Down comes the night. And I toss that aside, and underneath I'm nude, well, pasties in a G-string and a chain harness. So then I try to break out of the chain harness, and I finally managed to. And then just a sense of relief. But then when that bass line kicks in, the outro's bass line kicks in, like I become kind of possessed, and I try to shake it off. Yeah. Take it, Victor. When that happens, I become possessed, and I start struggling, and what happens is what's left of the chains on my wrists, which are a little what's the word I'm looking for? Carabiners. It's made of little metal carabiners that blend in with the chain link. I'm also wearing a chain headdress, and I wind up cuffing my wrists to my head, all while struggling and trying to prevent me from doing so. And it was a lot about the inner struggle I was facing with like heartbreak and grief, and like it was very much about, it's embarrassing to say, it was about that same heartbreak I was going through, the one that ultimately I guess wound up inspiring Baker Street. It was by that heartbreak, and the ultimate message was, you said you never break the chain. I'm the one who ended that relationship.
Your chain.
Yeah, I broke the chain. Like, you can break away from a relationship physically, but breaking away from it mentally is a whole other thing. And that's very much what it was. Like, I ended that relationship. I knew it wasn't right for me, but breaking away from it mentally was a whole other ball game. And I felt like my heart just kept like tethering me, chaining me back to this thing I was trying to break away from. So that was very much an autobiographical piece. Yeah.
comedy performer, I mean, I would say foremost. You're most known for being a comedy performer, and that's hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm not negating that in the slightest. I think it's very hard to be a good, strong comedy performer and have multiple comedy acts that are quality.
Oh, thanks.
Do you feel that you always like how when you have a really successful act like CSI, and now you're writing Baker Street and you're still working on it because you're still I mean, you're working on everything at all times. You've said you even have some things you want to look at with CSI that you're still like an established award-winning act and another established award-winning act. You're still remixing and figuring out its best potential.
Yeah.
How much time do you spend on worrying, for lack of a better word, but focusing maybe is a better word, on an existing act and keeping it at the levels that you want it to be while also doing something new?
I've been doing a lot less new stuff nowadays. Like, I've done little one-offs for themed shows, because Montreal has a lot of themed shows, especially. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I could easily adapt this act into this theme. Okay, I'll pitch for this show, and I'll do it, and that's fine. It usually winds up being a one-off. And then every once in a while I do one that I'm like, oh, I like this. It could become part of my repertoire. Like, I've got my Trololo act, which I'm doing right now with the same suit as CSI, because do you know how hard it is to find a brown double-breasted 70s style suit that fits, a fat woman? It is very, very difficult, especially one that I need the pants to be too big for me for.
I was speaking to Dorian Dietrich, who we know from California, who is at the Ohio Burlesque Festival. If you have footage of your Trololo, she would love to see it.
Really?
Because I mentioned it to her, and she thought that sounded fantastic. Okay. Because she had been considering doing one, and she said, and I said, oh, well, things are different. She's like, no, but if she's accomplished it and is doing everything that act needs to be, I just want it to exist in the world. Aww. So she wants to see it.
I'll see. I might. I did it in Chicoutimi at Sag Geek recently, so like this little tiny con that happened in rural Quebec, which, by the way, had one of the best goddamn audiences I've ever had in my life. 60 people, who most of them had never seen burlesque, and I did a cold open where people are usually like, I don't know, do I clap? I don't know if I clap. I don't want to objectify anyone. I'm just gonna sit here quietly. No, but the second I walked out there, like, yeah, like they were one of the best crowds I've ever had. But I'll see if there's footage from that. That would be cool, yeah. But yeah, so right now I'm using the CSI suit for that. The only new thing I've really created, I've got a Malvolio act from 12th Night that I've only done once, but I put a lot of costume work into it so far. There's more stuff I want to do, but I only did it once, but I felt really good about it, so I think that's going to be part of the repertoire. But it's been, I don't know, the past 2 years, I'd say I've really been focusing on just reworking what I already have. Because for years, I was just like, okay, new, next, new, next, new, next. And it was like, no, I really need to work.
It's easy to get into that pattern.
Yeah.
I know a lot of performers who have very established acts, and there's a certain feeling of, but everyone's seen it. Oh, everyone knows that one. And I'm like, yeah, but everyone loves it. And everyone likes to see it. Like, I could take it very personal if I wanted to. I'd be dumb to. Because I have 30 acts ready to go at any time. Nice. My bags are packed.
Your bags are packed.
And they're ready to go. We get another musical moment. But I am also aware that I have a top 5. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I have a top 5 that are my top 5 per se. I don't do anything I don't enjoy doing, but there are acts that I get most requested, or that are most versatile in theme, or that, I work a lot with Burlesque in Philadelphia, and they branch out to a lot of new locations. So technically, I can bring the same 2 acts for each of those locations as my tester acts to see, because I know they're tried and true, and I know the audience is going to be mostly good on my side as long as they get either the joke or they're in the mood. Mm-hmm. So at one point I was worried that I kept sending Josh Schoenwolf, who runs Burlesque, the same songs over and over again, not taking into account that I'm sending him 2 of my best, mm-hmm. and I'm sending him two of my best to locations that haven't previously seen them. And that's worth considering. In addition to the fact that I have a weekly show where, and I spoke to Femme Appeal about this when I first started a weekly, because she had 9 years of experience doing kiddie nights, and she was like, there are times where you just throw something on and you use it as a time to workshop. There are times where you just treat it like it's a go-go set with stripping. There are times you do the same act over and over again because you know people are going to dig it, and you just gotta have to feel it, and also pay attention to what else you're booking.
Yeah.
And fill a gap if necessary. If there's a comedy heavy show, be the dramatic piece. If there's a lot of gender fuckery, see how you can mix that up. If there's not a lot of representation in some regard, if everything is very modern sounding, do a throwback. Like, you work with it. Work with what you got. And I think having 30 some acts at any time ready to go has been good for me. But there are definitely acts that I'm like, oh, I'll get to you soon, honey. I'm so sorry. I feel like a negligent parent. Like, oh, I know you've been packed for months, and you've been clean, and you've been ready, and I washed you, and I put you away, and I'll get to you soon. I'm so sorry. I got a digital get down again. Like, I'm not sure where we are right now. This all sort of looks the same to me.
We went over some sort of ravine just now. It was very pretty.
Right. Well, that doesn't help me. Tell me.
We're in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. Well, we're in Pennsylvania for like the next 7.5 years. Pennsylvania is very wide. Not only up and down, but side to side. That's a cabaret reference for you. Are you a musical theater person?
So to some extent. My training, my artistic training in high school, I went to an arts high school in Ottawa. If there are any Canterbury people listening, no, I'm from De La Salle. We kicked your ass at Kiwanis every year. Suck it.
There's some bitterness there that I just don't know if we're ready to handle that kind of straight talk.
To give a bit of context, there's two arts high schools in Ottawa. There's the Anglophone one and the Francophone one. And despite the Francophone one, at least when I was there, continuously winning all the awards, all the media attention went to the Anglophone one because we live in a mostly Anglophone city in a society that privileges Anglophones. And so, yeah. So that was a little... Anyway. Like, nothing wrong with anyone who went to Canterbury. I have friends who went to Canterbury. Anywho.
We are exit 60 outside Shippenville. So, for those of you who know...
Keeping track at home.
I know. Well, Clarion University is not far. So that actually is a relatively easy to understand landmark. And oh my god, these cars.
These people don't understand what a fast lane is.
Or their fucking signals.
Now we're going over, ooh, wow.
Yeah.
We're going over a really beautiful river right now.
You know what's gorgeous? When I drove, we'll get back to that in a second, but I drove through Colorado when I was taking Rob to California for the first time. So pretty to drive through. The roads, however, are fucking terrifying. They're so steep. There are runaway truck routes every half mile because they're that steep. But gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
We think when I was I went on tour. I was part of this choir in 2009, and we went on tour through Croatia and Serbia, and we went busing across Bosnia, and it was some of the most gorgeous landscape. It was also some of the most heartbreaking landscape because there's still a lot, at least in 2009, there was still a lot of ruins from the war. Like every single small town we went through, there was so many ruined buildings still. But driving through the countryside was actually spectacular. And when I say the countryside, I mean the mountains. Like we were driving like in the clouds, but just these gorgeous green valleys below us. It was absolutely stunning, but it was really steep, and you had all these hairpin turns in the mountains, and it was like we could just go careening over the edge here. Like it's a little frightening, but my God, it was gorgeous.
I seem to recall also in Colorado there were way too many lanes per road. Like, no, you need fewer cars. Fewer cars, please.
I just realized I just sassed a school in Ottawa without answering the question.
Oh, sure.
So, all this to say, I went to this arts school in Ottawa, and my specialization was in vocal music. So took private voice lessons, but we also did group stuff. Like we did a choir. We performed at Carnegie Hall in grade 11. That was a lot of fun. We would also put on operas as well. So that was a really great experience. So that was my artistic training.
Okay. So you never did like the school play or anything like that?
No, we wound up putting on the only musical we put on. We did have one concert that was Broadway themed, but that was all translated into French.
Well, except for Les Miserables, there's actually a French version of that.
Yeah.
So.
À la volonté du peuple et à la santé du progrès. Remplis ton cœur de vin, rebelle de vin, ami fidèle. Nous voulons faire la lumière malgré le masque de la nuit pour illuminer notre terre et changer la vie. But the only musical we wound up putting on... Huh?
That was nice. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. The only musical we wound up putting on was a musical that a friend of mine wrote.
Okay.
An original piece. So she wrote the music, and another student wrote the book. A musical about Joan of Arc that we put on in my final year.
Was it also French?
It was also in French. Yes. It was called Jeanne, and it was.
Is
really...
that how you say Joan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeanne, and it was really fun. It was really good.
What is Jeanne d'Arc?
Jeanne d'Arc.
D''ARC, right?
Yeah. It's true. Like when I'm in the States, sometimes people see the D apostrophe and they say D, and then I remember when D'Angelo was like at the height of his popularity, and I used to be like, why is everyone pronouncing it D'Angelo? It's clearly spelled D'Angelo. D'Angelo.
Not D'Angelo, no.
D'Angelo.
That's probably the most anyone's waxed poetic on D'Angelo in years, that are frankly.
Yeah. Oh, I listened to How Does It Feel a few months ago, and I was just like, because at the time I was like, oh, this is cool, but now it's just like, oh, I feel that in my gut. Okay, yeah, I see why people were losing their minds over the song.
Sultry.
Oh my fucking god.
Also the video.
Yeah, the video too. Oh my god. But yeah, no, so I'm from more of like an opera and classic background as opposed to musical theater, but I appreciate musical theater.
You just listened to Hamilton on the way to the States, you said, didn't you?
Yes. Well, I only got to listen to 3/4 of it because then we started getting into New York, and then my partner was getting mad because I wasn't giving him directions because I was listening to
you don't know the ending.
I don't know the ending, but I assume everybody lives happily ever after.
They're still fine. They're still great. They're doing great. Yeah, no, there's a really pretty. I mean, I don't know Hamilton all that well. I mean, mostly I learned it through drag queens in New York City. But so I've heard "Satisfied" a lot.
Someone sang it at Rock Bar the other night.
I've heard "Satisfied" a lot, and there are a couple of burlesque performers who have "You'll Be Back" acts.
And Knox Falls recently starred in a Hamilton burlesque show in Seattle called Hamilties. One musical I saw last year, so my partner and I went to New York, and he was like, okay, if we're going to New York together, you're not doing your usual thing of like getting gigs every night, we're doing the tourist experience, damn it. I was like, oh, okay.
So you went to Times Square.
So yes, we went to Times Square. We went to go see a musical. We wound up going to see Groundhog Day, and it was fucking fantastic.
I've heard that. It's like one of those surprise ones. I've heard that.
I mean, like they really expanded on the film, and it turns out, I found out after the fact that apparently that's the film that broke the friendship between Bill Murray and Harold Ramis, because Bill was like, Harold, there's so much here, we can go so deep with the subject matter, there's so much to explore and flesh out, and Harold was like, nah, I want a dumb comedy, it's a dumb comedy, we're doing a dumb comedy. And
the implications of that film can get really startling,
and that's what they went for in the musical. They really took it, and I mean, I think Tim Minchin was an excellent choice. I'm mostly a fan of his. Sometimes I find, like, as an atheist myself, people who are like arrogant about their atheism bothers me, because there's a bit of a classist element to it, I find.
Yeah, there's a superiority.
Yeah, it's like you're like a rich, privileged white person, you've never had to like rely on faith to get you through hard times, or I'm saying that, actually I don't know if you had to. I'm assuming his
I
experience.
know, yeah.
But no, I mean, as an atheist myself, I don't like it when people act holier than thou about their atheism. That bothers me.
Holier than thou, so to speak.
Atheister than thou.
More secular than thou.
Yes, more secular than thou. But some of his works here and there, like some of his songs, his comedy songs here and there, touch on some really lovely aspects of atheism, like the parts of living in the moment, like...
I guess, because that film doesn't really... It doesn't really address the afterlife, but it certainly doesn't make a great case for it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if... I'm sure there is some, major thesis that it's actually limbo, and it actually is a very Christian film in some ways, that he has to do the right thing, quote unquote, to finally accomplish what he needs to. After doing the worst thing, that's the thing also, is he has to do the right thing, basically, the perfect day. He has to have the perfect day, but he can have a bajillion awful days.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's a very Catholic way of looking at it, or your sins are forgiven immediately because of your confession. It's sort of an interesting idea.
I mean, the musical definitely takes it in a very atheist route of no, there's nothing after, so make the most of it now, and you see this character blossom into the best version of himself, and just put in watching him learn the piano, a lifetime of learning the piano to become this proficient piano player, and just, it's really well done. Of course, it wouldn't be a Tim Minchin thing if there isn't a song poking fun at other people's beliefs.
Well.
So there's one of those in there. But otherwise, I think he was a great choice to write this musical. And it really is gorgeous. Barrett Doss as Rita was fucking awesome. What's the name of the guy who plays Phil Connors? He was good too. Andy... No, was it Andy?
I don't know.
What is his name? This is going to bother me. I know his name. Anyway, he was fantastic.
You have a phone? I'm going to tell you?
I have a phone. You know what? You're right. I can look this up. No, but my partner had never seen a musical before, so he was like, I want to go see... He had never seen a musical ever.
Not even off-Broadway?
Not even off-Broadway. He had
film?
never... I don't think so.
He had never heard of he obviously had heard of the concept of bursting into song, but he had never seen it in front of him.
He's very familiar with the concept of bursting into song. He lives with me.
So your life is a musical.
I will sing about anything and everything. I'll be like, yo, what is in this pasta? Everything. So but he decided to see an actual musical, and he absolutely loved it. He laughed, he cried. I laughed, I cried, but at the end, he was crying tears of joy at the end of the musical, and I'd never seen him cry tears of joy before. He loved it so much. He immediately bought the cast recording, started listening to it every single day, until he listened to Hamilton, fell in love with that, and then listens to that all the time now. So, it's kind of adorable. My partner...
What will be next?
I don't know what will be next. I guess next musical we wind up seeing live. Well, we'll see. Yeah. Meantime, I'm trying to discreetly Google the cast of Groundhog Day on my phone as I hold your phone to your face.
Well, I'm driving.
Yes. You're doing a great job of it.
Thank you. I've hardly stopped short at all. Hardly. course of 3 days. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 4 days. This is our 4th day.
Yep. Well, yeah, that's true. You did do a fair amount of driving in Cleveland as well.
A little bit. Yeah, we were 15 minutes to and from each the Airbnb to and the Airbnb was a challenge.
It was. Yeah, I apologize. For those of you at home, this was actually Victor's first Airbnb experience.
It was. I've done, like, the standard bed and breakfast, but I've never, like, had a room in someone else's house and felt like I was in someone else's house before. Like, that was really what it was.
I've had plenty of great experiences, but this one was not.
I'm not mad at it. It really could have been, in my estimation.
I'm a little mad at it.
I get it. And I would have liked to have been more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yes. That's really what it was.
I would have liked them to not have put shower liners on the mattress. Shower liners.
Yeah.
That was really not.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's stop talking about this. This is just sad and depressing. And you people don't want to hear about this at home. This is not.
I don't know if you know my audience very well.
And, like, give us the Airbnb gossip.
Give us the tea on the terrible Airbnb. No, it's all good. Let's see.
You want to stop for gas?
Not just yet. I still have 3 dots.
Punxsutawney, it's a little town with a heart as big as any town, as any small town in the USA, and there is no town greater than Punxsutawney on Groundhog Day. Guess what we're driving past, everyone?
I'd just like to point out that was not exactly solicited, but it was a reasonable decision. It was yes. We are passing Punxsutawney.
Punxsutawney.
That truck just turned into this lane really unexpectedly.
Excuse me.
Well, wait, so we're passing Punxsutawney, or it said it was a couple miles out?
Whatever. I just saw Punxsutawney and burst into song.
You're supposed to be paying attention to our location.
I paid attention to Punxsutawney.
No, but we may have already passed it. What if we wanted to see the historical site?
Ooh. Can we go see Phil?
No. I think he's protected. I don't think that's available to the public.
Oh.
I'm not positive, but I don't think so.
For a second I thought you were saying no. I think he's dead.
No, he's not dead. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's the same Phil it always is. I don't know how long groundhogs live. But, we're going to turn...
Was there an accident? What is happening? Oh dear.
Like I see something. Yeah, I don't see anybody, I can't quite tell. It looks like someone drove into, the middle area, but I can't tell.
I was like, is that someone lying on the ground?
No,
I think it was a backpack.
There definitely was a stretcher, but nobody was on the stretcher. Yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll put a damper on the
fairgrounds of Jefferson County.
When I went to Alternatives with Halloween and Tigger, we drove together.
Which year was this?
The only year I've gone, which was the year you did Wall Street.
Okay.
So,
2016.
Yeah. A car was on fire.
Oh my
as
god.
we drove by it. And, like, we were like, there's just a car randomly on fire. And then we realized that the people that were probably from that car were just a significant distance away.
Good.
But,
Thank God.
yeah, I had never seen an entire car, like, inflamed before. My estimation of a car on fire is based on the movies where it, like, instantaneously blows up. But that evidently is not exactly 100% accurate.
I mean, yeah, I think it burns for a while until it gets at the gas tank. But, yeah.
And even then, I'm not sure what it does.
Tune in for Victor's other podcast, How Cars Burn.
It's a very short podcast.
It ends with a bang.
Oh. Hilarity. Thank you. This has also been a weekend of puns.
Yes.
Puns, bad jokes, Simpsons quotes, and...
Mostly from you. I will admit it, freely, you have out-Simpsonsed me. Yes.
I'm not mad at all. Well, the thing is, though, I mean, I have...
Neither am I.
I have a housemate who doesn't get them. And I have two very dear friends who don't live with me, live near me anymore, so I don't really get to interact with them as much as that as well. But we can go back and forth too. And my husband is now versed in Simpsons, which is appealing. He's a little picky, but he's appealing.
I love, you told me what one of your husband's favorite Simpsons gags is, and I love it how it's like one of those things you don't think about, but when you think about it, it's like, wait, that is hilarious.
Yeah.
This is what Marge and her mother, when she's tiny in a cornfield, and her mom's like, this is what a cornfield looks like, honey.
Yeah. No, that's actually one of his. He's a big fan of Marge. He likes Grandpa. We will frequently say, now I can't think of it. There no wrinkled face for shame to the sickos at Modern Bride magazine. Things like that. And Krusty the Clown. He's a big Krusty the Clown fan.
I love Grandpa. I love how he gets away with saying like some really salty stuff. Like, we left the kids with you for 3 hours, and Child Protective Services take them away. Oh, bitch.
I mean, it's the same equivalent. It's the same thing that like Sophia from the Golden Girls gets, or.
But I think I'd never heard, as a kid, I don't think I'd ever heard the word bitch on TV yet. Until I heard Grandpa say it, and I was like, Grandpa said a bad word.
And 3 times. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, every once in a while.
But he can get away with it because he's hilarious, and he's like this weird, sweet old man who could say like stuff others can't say.
They've done a couple things. There's actually a few things they can't do anymore. You can't show naked Simpsons anymore. There were some butt shots, like usually for jokes.
And then you got to see Bart's dick in the film, which that just made me feel I don't want to see a kid's dick, even if it's animated. I just feel gross about that.
It was an odd choice, I will say. I don't quite. I mean, I get the joke of it because they had the whole joke of it is that he's obscured by everything until he's not. But it was an odd choice. Did you like the film? Meh.
Not really. I mean, how I feel about The Simpsons is it's like a childhood pet that's been with you forever and you love it so much. But holy shit, it's 30 years old and has not been having a good quality of life for over 20 years. It is in pain. You know, if you love it, let it go.
Wow, that's harsh.
That's just how I feel.
I get it.
But I mean, no, The Simpsons, I mean, it has needed to end for a long time now. It just has never recaptured its former glory. It's tried so much.
Has it though?
Well, I don't know. You're quoting Modern Simpsons to me more often.
I'm not quoting that. Okay. My idea of quoting Modern Simpsons is still 15 years old.
Yeah, that's still past the golden age.
That's great and all, but I'm not exactly quoting what happened last Sunday. So
fair.
I would hardly call it modern. But you and my husband both have a breaking point. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like a lot of things past the year 2000. Like, things could have ended with Behind the Laughter, and he would have been fine with that.
Yeah.
But there are still episodes that he will enjoy that he just ignores the fact that they came after, because he also really likes Gil, and Gil doesn't show up a whole lot.
Yeah, Gil is pretty
towards
funny.
the end.
My hot plate.
And really, I mean, what really cemented his love for Gil was that Gil keeps his items in a Port Authority locker, and for some reason, that's hysterical to him. He also finds it hysterical that Homer went all the way to Homer City for an irregular coat.
To Homer City? Homer went to Homer City?
I did not say Homer City. I said Homer went to New York City to get an irregular coat.
People at home, did you hear Homer City? Because I heard Homer City at first.
They'll never hear it because I'll just cut it out.
You fiend! Yes, he went to New York City. No, he went to... he was going to another place upstate to buy an irregular coat. But it required a stop in New York City. I mean, I get obviously I understand 100% why they no longer air the New York
They
episode
do,
on TV.
absolutely they do. They're back
They
to
do?
airing it.
Oh, they're back.
They
Okay.
stopped airing it for a while, but FXX airs it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I definitely get why they stopped airing it for a while then.
Yeah.
But it's still, and yeah, like the pain of seeing, I can't imagine
they
a
don't-
New Yorker, someone who's seen what happened on 9/11, I can't imagine the pain of seeing the Twin Towers again.
Yeah.
But it's a well-crafted episode.
It's a great episode. It's one
Yeah.
of their best episodes. But also it's, I don't know. I mean, a lot of times, like, I mean, we watch movies or we see things, and I always find it kind of awkward when films try very hard to not put themselves in a specific era. I don't mind a mashup, or I don't mind a movie that is sort of nostalgic and isn't like quite regular. I don't mind that, but a movie that like avoids saying dates, or avoids like your fashion is going to dictate it. The music choices you make are going to dictate it. The style of filming is going to dictate it. It's okay that your movie was made in 1975. It's okay. But I mean, it's gonna happen. I mean, how many establishing shots of movies that take place in New York?
Of course.
They have.
But I think it's different than an episode where the Twin Towers feature as like part of the plot.
Yes. I can't think of a movie where the Twin Towers actually feature as part of the plot directly. I'm sure there is.
But The Simpsons, just to backtrack a little bit though, like I remember Matt Groening saying that The Simpsons would end when there's a Simpsons movie, and I was like, okay, here it comes, the big finish. And then they kept going, and it was like, no. People at home, Victor is doing hilariously very well-timed gestures, and you're just gonna have to trust me that it's funny.
I mean, that's true of most times. They just have to trust you that it's funny. But we really didn't explore Cleveland all.
Oh, but can we talk about the waffle place we went to?
We can talk about the waffle place we went to. Go ahead, Sucre.
So, yesterday we went to this... I woke up and I was like, I want brunch, because I always want brunch.
Brunch all the damn day.
Brunch all the damn day. Anyone who comes to Montreal, I'm like, yo, we'll go for brunch. And then we go for brunch, because brunch. So I was like, I want brunch. We looked around. There was a place relatively close to where we were staying called...
It was a little late for brunch, though.
It was a little late. But I mean, I in Montreal, I have brunch. Like, they serve it up till 4 o'clock.
Yeah, we usually done by 2 here in the States.
Oh, excuse me.
I know, I'm just saying. I'm not happy about it. I don't think that's necessary.
Anyway, so we went to this place called the Euro Waffle Bar. Waffle spelled W-A-F-E-L.
And Euro, E-U-R-O, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And bar is spelled B-A-R.
Interesting.
Anyway, we went there. It's like right near the university, right near the intersection of Euclid and I want to say
There's
Madison.
Like a nursing school there, and yeah.
And a really classist parking lot.
Yes, the parking lot you could only pay via app. And I thought that was just a little inconvenient, a little annoying, and yes, I also thought it was classist.
Hey, I'm not making fun of you. I agree 100%.
As someone who has an iPhone, it still took us multiple minutes to download the app, to connect my PayPal, to... and that's the other thing, like, how quickly we had to do it. Because there was a woman who was walking around car by car,
Yep.
and I'm pretty sure she gave someone a ticket while they were coming back. Like,
Yeah.
and he said, I didn't know where to pay. And she said, you got to pay via the app. He's like, well, I didn't know that. She's like, it's all on the signs. And he's like, but I didn't know where to get. And he's, not her problem. Not her problem.
Yeah,
Anyway.
no. So, crappy parking aside, when we go into this place, it's really tiny. There's just the chef behind the bar. And he's getting ready to close up for the afternoon. Like, we showed up around 2, and I think at 3 they were closing until 8 o'clock. But he was super lovely. He walked us through the menu. They were savory and
we ever learned
sweet.
his name.
No, we didn't. Oh, but he was absolutely darling.
Very charming gentleman.
Yeah, super lovely guy. About our age. And
I never know.
well, anywho, he looked to be about our age, and he walked us through the menu. There were savory options, there were sweet options. You got that awesome waffle sandwich.
I got grilled chicken with arugula, mushrooms, and some sort of...
Were there onions as well?
Yes, onions, shallots, and then...
Labna? You said?
There was some interesting spice, but I couldn't quite identify it. It wasn't a hot spice, but it was a very flavorful. It was just very good. It was very good.
Yeah.
And the waffle was folded over. It was a fresh, thick, delicious
that
waffle.
big, like, thick, none of this runny batter shit. It was, like, really thick, kind of sourdough Belgian type. Like, you really have to shove it into the waffle iron, and then it cooked for, like, 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah.
I was thinking, like, oh, God.
It's burning, but no. He knew his timing. And it's big, thick,
And he just folded it over like a falafel, basically.
Yep.
And it was delicious.
And he said, didn't he say he put, like, sour cream and labna in yours?
I don't recall, but probably. Yeah, it was definitely, there was a vague sense of, halalish quality about it, so I wasn't sure if it had tzatziki or something like that, but it was good.
It was so good, I stole a few bites. I wanted a savory one, but he was like, no, our sweet ones are the best. But I had it, like, the sweet one was delicious. I had a waffle.
Say no.
No, but he's like, no, you want our specialties.
Strongly recommended.
But your sandwich was good. I would have had that because I also had a milkshake, so I should have had your sandwich too.
That held me over for quite a while.
Huh?
That held me over for quite a while.
Yeah.
Because I didn't eat dinner until like 9.
That's right, and you had a milkshake too. You had the Crazy Sexy Cool.
I had Crazy Sexy Cool because I love dairy products named after TLC albums. That's what I go after. And it was vanilla and like
pretzels and M&Ms.
Crushed and delicious. Yeah, it was like going to like an ice cream fixins bar, just saying I'll have one of each and then smash them. That's really what it was.
I had this. So he made me these 2 waffles, and he melted Kinder Bueno bars into them, and served it with like an entire banana on top, and piles of strawberries, and like some sort of sauce on top, like a chocolate sauce, I think, or a caramel sauce.
It was like a sundae sauce, yeah.
Yeah, it was absolutely decadent and delicious. But he chatted us up. We talked about the Ohio Burlesque Festival. He was like, "Oh my God, tell me more about burlesque." And we talked about the whole revival.
I explained to him differences between being gay and identifying as queer. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Because I don't know exactly where he fell on that list, but he was genuinely interested when I used the term queer, and he's like, what's the difference between queer and gay? Well, there's a lot of different possibilities, but
also
like, that
he
was
was
neat.
quote unquote jokingly hitting on you a few times as well.
Well, he called me a sexy motherfucker
Yes.
after he saw me in my Instagram photo because I was not dressed up.
But didn't he make another comment? He made another kind of flirty comment at you before that, though, that I picked up on.
I just can't help it if the waffle man thought I was a snack. What do you want from me?
But I think my favorite part was this young woman came in who knew him, and then
Clearly
she
had
said,
stayed over the weekend or something, and like was near him in proximity.
yeah, like they'd become friends over a period of time. She'd been in Cleveland, but she was leaving. She was flying back to, I think, Massachusetts that day. So she came in for one last hurrah, and they like split a waffle. But like we started talking with her too, and then another of his friends came in and had a milkshake, and so it just became this communal thing. We're all sitting at the bar, just all having a conversation together, like we're old friends. It was really, really lovely. But he was lovely, and she was lovely, and his friend was nice, and we had a really great time there. So.
Yeah, very cool.
And I think that's what I like. Like, I don't think you'd have that kind of experience in Montreal. Like, people are cool, but there's
a distance.
Yeah, I mean, and the States is a funny place as a Canadian who comes to visit a lot. But the one thing I like about the States is like certain places you'll go, people will say hello to you on the street, and not in a creepy way. Just like, hey, how you doing? Like. Yeah. And I like that.
That happened several times.
Yeah.
Where people like nodded and said hi.
And that's not something I have in Canada.
It sort of seemed like a neighborhood check-in.
Yeah.
Just sort of like a, hey, how are you doing? Less of a, let me bother you, or let me, jump up on you.
Yeah.
More like a, this is our town. We're going to pass each other in proximity, and how you doing? It was very neighborly. It was very small town.
Yeah. I felt that when I went to New Orleans in 2016. I think I was walking around, it was either Bywater or Marigny during the day, just like walking, and like several people I passed were like, hey, how you doing? I was like, hi, and I was just like, it made me really happy. It was really nice.
I have no problem being left the hell alone when I'm walking.
Same.
And I'm not I very seldom get catcalled in face and makeup. I have a very different experience than the average woman in the city, or the average trans person in the city, and possibly even other queer people. But generally speaking, people don't want to bother the guy in clown face. They would rather that guy just walk by and then continue their day. We're entering Chesapeake Bay. Here we are. The Chesapeake Bay waterway. Every once in a while I'll get generally someone who lives on the street, who will go, oh, hey, or whoa, what's going on? But they won't engage directly. So I don't get a lot of that. So I am very much aware that it exists and happens, but it sort of jars me when people acknowledge me, frankly, on the street. I'm like, oh, right.
I mean, like, the thing is, if I'm walking down the street in Montreal, we don't say, like, hello to everyone, but it's like, I'm the kind of person who, I'm also a very anxious person, so if I see, like, someone's walking towards me, I'm like, oh, do I, like, make eye contact and, like, smile and acknowledge them, or am I creepy if I do that, but I also don't want to be rude? Oh my god, am I being creepy or am I being rude? Overthink, and then I'll, like, do some weird combination where I, like, inadvertently wind up staring at them because I'm awkward as hell and smiling. I'm like, great, now they think I'm crazy. That's awesome. Yeah. I can't people. I don't know how to people.
It's really okay. Do you get, like, the hey mamas and the how you doing stuff?
In Montreal, you mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, yes.
I mean,
in general.
in general, yeah. Montreal, I find my experience, I don't know I've definitely read some horror stories in Montreal. My experience is that thankfully it happens few and far between. When it happens, it pisses me the fuck off. Like, I did have an incident, I think a few months ago. I was at the bus station one night, like, waiting for my boyfriend to pick me up, and I'm sitting in it's kind of like an entryway between two doors, but there's like 3 entryways like that, and this one is tiny and has a little bench. So I'm sitting there with my phone, and this guy, like, walks into this tiny space that can't be more than, like, 5 feet by 10 feet, and proceeds to just stand there, body, like, angled dead on at me, and just stare at me, and I feel his eyes burning into me, and he's just staring at me, and I kind of went into fight or flight mode. Like, I'm not good with conflict, but if pushed, like, I will.
Did you fight or flight?
I fought a bit. I didn't even look up. I just pointed at the door. I was like, keep moving. He's like, what? I said, keep moving. Still looking down the phone. He's like, what did you say to me? I'm like, look, I don't want any trouble. Keep moving. And then he got in my face, and then I, like, stormed out of there. And then thankfully my partner arrived like 30 seconds later, but I got into his car visibly shaken because this fucking asshole felt entitled to stare me down and,
take up as much space as possible.
Yeah, and try to threaten me when I stood my ground. And I didn't know, like, hey, is this guy gonna fucking hit me? He might. So, incidents like that do happen from time to time. Overall, like, I'm grateful that I personally, again, my own experience, I generally feel comfortable walking around alone at night in Montreal. But yeah, every once in a while, stuff reminds you of, oh yeah.
Do you bike a lot too?
I do. Right now, like, I haven't biked as much this summer, just because I'm trying to go easy on my knees. I have problems with both my knees from...
Yeah, 30s knees.
30s knees? Well,
your knees are never the same.
Well, my left knee I dislocated back in 2011. Actually happened in the States. I had to pay like $300 $300 or $400 for like an X-ray, and they couldn't even tell. They're like, "Oh yeah, it's fine. It's just a little swollen. Like, here's a prescription for some anti-inflammatories that gave me ridiculous side effects." And a week later, I look at my knee. I was like, wait a minute. I pushed it back into place. I'm like, oh, I can walk again. I spent like $300 or $400 on an X-ray. They couldn't even fucking tell it was dislocated. So that was dumb. And the other one, years ago, like maybe 2009, I fell on it when I was skating, and I felt fine. But that night, it swelled up to the size of a grapefruit.
You were skiing?
Skating.
Skating.
And about 3 years later, I was going up a flight of stairs, and my knee just started cracking. And now both my knees crack when I go upstairs. It's pretty disgusting.
You gotta do it in rhythm. That's my voice, not your knees cracking.
I got that. Okay. Anyway. But no, like sometimes now they get a little swollen if I overdo it, and it sucks because I love biking. So I have to be careful.
We're back by Belafonte.
Yay!
Back at the beginning. We're gonna stop for gas at the next exit.
Okay.
Just FYI.
I guess now might be a good time to probably should give my voice a rest. My throat's feeling a little
Well, then we will rest you.
Yay.
Alright. Okay, bye.
Bye.